I married my wife for her family's $350, $0 inheritance, only to find out she secretly forged my signature and transferred it all to her affair partner. Now she's suing me for half the property, claiming I planned the whole thing. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video, using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am, sitting in my living room trying to process how everything fell apart so fast. It all started with a gut feeling I couldn't shake off. Something was off with Lisa, my wife. We'd been together for 5 years. She's a beautiful woman, sharp-tongued, and she always knew how to get what she wanted. At first, I just thought she was stressed or maybe working too much. But then little things started piling up. She'd come home late more often, claiming she was at work or running errands. Her phone was always glued to her hand, and she'd hide it whenever I got close. She'd get defensive if I asked about her day, snap at me for no reason, and suddenly she was dressing differently, more revealing, more provocative. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just trying to spice things up or was stressed about her job. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then came the signs that made my stomach drop. I noticed her phone had a new number saved under a fake name, Mike, which I later found out was her affair partner. I caught her in a lie about a dinner date she'd supposedly canceled, only to see her on a video chat late at night. The worst part, she was whispering sweet nothings to him, giggling like a schoolgirl. It was one thing to suspect, but to see her actively cheating, that hit me like a punch in the gut. I decided to follow her one night. I was desperate for answers. She left the house around 10 p.m. claiming she was going to meet her sister. Instead, I trailed her to a fancy hotel downtown. I saw her go into the room with a guy I didn't recognize at first, but then I saw her kiss him goodbye and slip a folded piece of paper into her purse. My hands clenched into fists. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? I'd always thought we were solid, that we had something real. That's when I started digging. I looked through her phone, her emails, anything I could find, and what I uncovered made my blood boil. She wasn't just cheating, she was planning her escape. She'd been talking about leaving me, about starting a new life with Mike, her new lover. I found messages where she'd promised him she'd take everything, our house, her inheritance, everything we owned. It was calculated, cold. She was using me, plain and simple. The thing is, she'd always been bitchy, snapping at me, calling me stupid when I didn't do things her way, but I never thought she'd go this far. I married her partly because of her family's money. They had a $350, $0 inheritance, and I saw it as a way to secure my future, maybe start my own business someday. But now, that's all gone, or so I thought. When I confronted her about the affair, she just denied everything. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was jealous because I wasn't satisfying her sexually. She claimed I was crazy for accusing her of cheating, said I was just insecure. But I had the evidence. I had her texts, her secret calls. I was furious. How could she lie like that? How could she pretend she loved me when she was sneaking around behind my back? That confrontation was the worst. She called me crazy, said I was mentally unstable. She accused me of trying to control her, of being jealous because I wasn't good enough for her. She said I was lucky to have her, and if I kept pushing, she'd leave me for Mike. That's when I realized she had no remorse, no shame. She was just using me as a paycheck, a meal ticket, and I was too blind to see it. The emotional toll was devastating. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. For days, I couldn't eat or sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, the good times, the fights, the secrets I never suspected. I felt like a fool. How could I have been so blind? How could I have married someone who was just waiting for the right moment to dump me? And the worst part, I was still in love with her even after everything I knew. I kept asking myself if I should fight for us, try to save what was left, or just cut my losses and walk away. But deep down, I knew this was the end. The trust was shattered beyond repair. Still, I had a lot to consider. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do next. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. She betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. That's where I stand now. I've got all the evidence, and I'm starting to plan my next move. But I'll tell you this, nothing prepares you for the feeling of betrayal like this. It's like your whole world flips upside down in a matter of seconds, and honestly, I don't know how I'm going to come out of this yet, but I do know one thing: I'm done being the sucker. After I found out about Lisa's affair, everything changed in an instant. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, but at the same time I was suddenly clear-headed. I had the evidence: her secret messages, the hotel receipt, the fake number she'd saved under Mike, and I knew I couldn't just let this slide. The betrayal ran so deep I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. The woman I married, the woman I loved, or thought I loved, was out there screwing around, planning her escape with some guy she barely knew. It was like my entire world was crumbling, and I was left standing there, trying to hold on to what was left. The first step was confronting her again. I wasn't going to let her deny it this time. I told her I knew everything. Her face flickered with that bitchy smirk she always used when she was trying to manipulate people. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her, and she immediately started spinning her lies. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, crossing her arms. "You're just paranoid. I've been faithful to you. You're overthinking everything because you're insecure." She even had the nerve to say I was imagining things, like I was crazy for suspecting her, but I had the proof. I threw her phone on the table, showing her the messages. Her eyes darted around, trying to find a way out of it. She looked at me with that fake, innocent expression, like she was the victim. "You're stalking me," she said. "You're crazy. I don't know what you want from me." I was furious, but I kept my cool. I told her she'd crossed a line, that I knew she'd been cheating for months, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. I told her I was done being her fool. Her reaction was classic Lisa: bitchy, defensive, and full of lies. She started crying, claiming she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. She said she was just stressed, that Mike was just a friend, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. She even tried to turn it around on me, saying I was insecure and that I'd ruined everything by accusing her, but I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I was done listening to her bullshit. She could lie all she wanted, but I had everything documented now. The emotional fallout hit me hard. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and confusion. How could she do this? How could she pretend to love me and then go behind my back like that? I kept thinking about all the times I'd trusted her, all the nights I stayed awake wondering if she was really faithful. And now I was left with nothing but a broken heart and a mountain of evidence. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I kept replaying the moments when I first suspected something was wrong. The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way she'd flinch whenever I got near her phone. It all made sense now. She'd been planning her escape for months, probably using me for the money, and then throwing me aside once she got her hands on her inheritance. That $350, $0 was supposed to be her ticket out, her way to start fresh with Mike, who she probably saw as her ticket to a better life. It was sickening. I realized I couldn't stay silent. I needed to do something about this. I started thinking about legal options, how I could get my name off the property, and what I could do about her trying to take half of everything. I knew she'd try to spin this against me, say I was controlling or abusive, but I had the proof of her forgery and her secret transfer of the inheritance. I felt the anger boiling inside me. She thought she could cheat her way out of everything, but I wasn't going to let her. That night I stayed up, going through every document, every email, every message. I contacted a lawyer the next day. I needed to protect myself, and I needed to make her pay for what she'd done. I knew she'd be trying to leverage the situation, maybe sue me for half the property, claiming I planned everything. But I had the evidence. I had her forged signature, the transfer documents, and all the proof I needed to fight back. I also started planning how I was going to confront her again, how I'd tell her I was done. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to be her pawn anymore. I wanted her to realize she wasn't going to get away with it. I knew I had to be careful, though. I didn't want her to retaliate or escalate things further. But I also knew I couldn't keep pretending this was okay. I had to stand up for myself, even if it meant tearing everything apart. Now, I'm in a strange place. I'm angry, yes, but I also feel a strange sense of relief that I finally see her for who she really is. I never imagined I'd be in this situation, but I also know I won't be a victim anymore. I've got a lot to figure out, whether to fight for the property, divorce her, or just cut ties completely. But one thing's clear, I won't let her ruin me. Not anymore. I'm done being manipulated, lied to, and used. I just wish I'd seen her for what she was sooner. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal consultations, emotional exhaustion, and a kind of numb clarity. I spent hours on the phone with my lawyer, trying to figure out how deep her deception went and what my best options were. It was clear she was planning to fight dirty, probably claiming I'd planned everything to steal her inheritance, but I had the evidence. The forged signatures, the transfer documents, the emails, everything pointed to her manipulating the situation from the start. Lisa, of course, didn't take this lying down. She started acting even more bitchy and entitled, throwing tantrums, screaming at me about how I was ruining her life, how I was trying to control her, and how she'd see me in court. She'd been trying to gaslight me from the beginning, insisting she was innocent, that I was crazy, that I was overreacting because I was insecure or jealous of her affair. The thing is, I knew she was lying. She'd lied about everything from the start. Now she was just doubling down, trying to spin her web of bullshit thicker. One night, she went so far as to call me paranoid and obsessive in front of her family, claiming I was trying to control her, that I'd always been jealous and insecure. She told everyone I was abusive, that I'd been threatening her and trying to keep her from seeing Mike. That was the moment I realized she was trying to create a narrative to cover her ass, to turn everyone against me. I felt the rage boiling again, but I kept my cool. I knew I had to be strategic if I was going to win this fight. Meanwhile, I was gathering more evidence, recordings of her voices, copies of her texts, even her bank statements showing the transfer of the inheritance. I'd learned that she'd forged my signature on the transfer papers, which was a felony. I couldn't believe she'd gone that far, risking everything for some cheap affair and a quick escape. I felt betrayed on every level by her, by the woman I thought I knew, by the life I thought we were building. But the most shocking thing was her blatant lies about the inheritance. She kept insisting I'd planned everything, that I'd manipulated her into giving me her family's money, and that I'd always been jealous and controlling. She claimed that I'd coerced her into signing all those papers, that I'd forced her to transfer the money so I could cheat her out of her rightful share. The audacity of her lies was staggering. I knew her well enough to see she was trying to turn the tables, to make herself look like the victim. The legal process was slow but steady. My lawyer filed for a temporary restraining order, and we started the process of freezing the property and investigating her forgery. I also contacted a private investigator to see if I could find anything else about her dealings with Mike, maybe even record their conversations or find proof of her planning to leave me. I wanted to destroy her lies and make sure she couldn't get away with this. I was also starting to think about what I wanted long-term. Was I going to fight for the house and the inheritance, or was I just ready to cut my losses and start over? Honestly, part of me was just exhausted from all the drama. I'd been blindsided, betrayed, and humiliated, and I was tired of feeling like the victim. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with stealing everything I had, especially not after all the effort I'd put into building my life. One thing I kept asking myself was, how did I miss all the signs? I was so caught up in the idea of building a future with her, of securing my family's money, that I didn't see the cracks forming early on. The late nights, the secretive behavior, the way she'd get defensive when I brought up her phone, those were all warning signs. I'd ignored them, thinking I was paranoid or insecure. Now I realized I'd been blind. She'd been planning her exit for months, maybe even longer. And then there was the betrayal of her family, too. They're rich, powerful, and well-connected. I knew she'd been talking about how her parents would never approve of me, how I was good enough for her or her inheritance. I wondered if she'd ever told them the truth about her affair, or if she'd spun her own story to them. I didn't care anymore. What mattered was that I had enough evidence to take her to court, to fight her for what's mine, and to expose her lies. I also started thinking about how I'd rebuild my life after this. The trust is gone, the marriage is effectively over, and I'm left with a broken heart and a pile of legal mess. But I know one thing, I won't let her manipulate me anymore. I'm done playing nice. I'm going to fight for every dollar, every piece of property, and make sure she pays for her lies. I don't care if she screams and lies in court. I have the truth, and that's all that matters. This whole mess has opened my eyes to how dangerous people can be when they're desperate and willing to lie and cheat their way out of responsibility. I've learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty just to get justice. And I've also learned that trusting blindly can cost you everything. I thought I married someone I loved, but I was just a pawn in her game. Now I'm trying to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward, alone, but vindicated in a way I never thought I'd be. The legal battle has become my full-time focus now. Every day feels like a new fight, and honestly, I'm exhausted. My lawyer is doing everything he can, filing motions, investigating her financial records, and preparing for the court hearings. I've handed over all the evidence I collected. Her forged signatures, the transfer papers, the emails, the texts, even her bank statements showing the transfer of the inheritance to her affair partner. Mike, it's a mountain of proof, and I know she's going to try to spin it all her way, but I'm confident we have enough to expose her lies. Lisa, of course, isn't taking this lying down. She's been pulling all the tricks she can, filing her own paperwork, claiming I manipulated her, accusing me of abuse, and insisting she's the real victim here. She's trying to paint herself as the wronged wife, the one who was just trying to get by. She's even gone as far as claiming I threatened her, that I was abusive, stuff that's so far from the truth it's laughable, but I know her game. She's desperate, and desperate people do crazy things. What's really frustrating is how she's still trying to control the narrative. She's calling her friends and family, telling them I'm a monster, saying I'm trying to ruin her life. She's trying to turn everyone against me, but I don't care anymore. I've got the evidence and I've got the truth. I know what she's done, and I'll fight to the end to make her pay for it. Meanwhile, I've started to see the cracks in her facade even more clearly. I discovered that she's been secretly meeting with Mike even after I caught her. I found texts where she was planning her escape, talking about how she'd finally be free once she got her hands on the inheritance. I also learned that she'd been telling her friends that I was an overbearing, controlling husband who didn't understand her needs. That's rich coming from her, considering she's the one sneaking around behind my back. I feel a strange mix of anger and relief. Anger because she betrayed me so completely, and relief because I finally see her for what she is. She's manipulative, selfish, and utterly untrustworthy. I used to think I married someone I could trust, but now I realize I was just fooling myself. The woman I thought I knew was just a good actress, pretending to be the perfect wife while secretly plotting her escape. I've also started to think about how I want this whole thing to end. Honestly, part of me just wants to walk away, divorce her, and never look back. I don't want to be around her lies and manipulations anymore. But then I think about what's fair. She stole my inheritance, forged my signature, and lied about everything. I want her to pay. I want her to feel the same pain I've felt: betrayal, humiliation, and loss. The thing is, I've learned a lot through all this. I've learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes you have to fight for what's right. I've learned that people will do anything to get what they want, even if it means destroying others. And most of all, I've learned that I can't rely on anyone but myself to protect what's mine. I used to think marriage was about trust and honesty, but now I see it's also about standing up for yourself when someone tries to take everything you have. I keep telling myself I'll get through this. I'll win in court, I'll get back what's mine, and I'll rebuild from the ashes. But it's not easy. Every day is a battle, emotionally and legally. I've had moments where I just wanted to give up, to walk away and forget it all. But I know that's what she wants, to break me, to make me accept her lies. I won't let her. I've also started thinking about the bigger picture. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about respect, integrity, and standing up for myself. I refuse to be a victim of her schemes. I want to show everyone, her family, her friends, even myself, that I'm not a fool. I'm a man who's been betrayed, but who's also going to fight back and come out stronger. So now I'm just waiting for the next court date. I've got everything lined up and I'm ready to face her lies head on. I know she'll try to twist the truth, but I have the proof. I know I'll have to stay strong, keep my emotions in check, and stick to the facts. It's not just about winning the case. It's about reclaiming my dignity and making her face the consequences of her actions. I never thought I'd be here, but I refuse to let her win. Not without a fight. The court dates are coming up faster than I expected, and honestly, it feels like I'm living in a nightmare I can't wake up from. Every morning I wake up thinking about what's at stake: my reputation, my property, my future. And by the afternoon, I'm buried in piles of legal paperwork and evidence. I've been in touch with my lawyer daily, tweaking my statements, making sure every piece of evidence is airtight. The forged signatures, the transfer documents, the emails, all meticulously organized. I want her to see that I'm serious, that I've fought tooth and nail to prove she's been lying from the start. Lisa, of course, isn't just sitting around. She's been pulling all her tricks, sending angry texts, trying to sway her family and friends, claiming I'm the bad guy. She's even started to threaten me, saying she'll take me to court for abuse or mental instability if I don't back down. It's laughable. She's trying to paint herself as the victim, but I see through her lies now. Her entire game is built on deception, manipulation, and empty accusations. I refuse to let her spin her web any longer. What's really frustrating is how she's still trying to control the narrative. She's calling her friends, her family, even her lawyer, telling them I'm trying to ruin her life. She's claiming I'm a jealous, insecure husband who's just trying to hold on to her for money. But I know the truth. I know she's the one who's been cheating, forging documents, and planning her escape. I've got the proof to back it up, and I plan to use it to end this once and for all. I've also been digging into her relationship with Mike Moore. I found out she's still in contact with him, texts, calls, even plans to meet up again after the court stuff. It's like she's not even trying to hide it anymore. I can't believe how blind I was for so long, thinking we had something real. She was just using me to get her inheritance, and now she's trying to run away with her lover. It's sickening. The emotional toll is brutal. I've gone from feeling numb to furious, then to a kind of hopelessness. How could I have been so stupid? I trusted her, loved her, and now I realize I was just a pawn in her game. I keep replaying all the signs I missed: the secretive phone calls, the late nights, the way she'd flinch whenever I brought up her phone. It's like I was blind to everything. And now I'm left with nothing but a broken heart, a mountain of evidence, and a determination to fight. Every time I think about her lying in court, claiming I manipulated her or threatened her, I get even more angry. I want her to face the consequences of her actions. I want her to realize that her lies can't save her from the truth. I want her to see that I'm not going to let her steal my property, my inheritance, or my dignity. I'm preparing myself mentally for the battle ahead, knowing it's going to be tough, but I also know I have the truth on my side. I've learned a lot from this whole ordeal. I've learned that trust is fragile and that some people will do anything to get what they want. I've learned that fighting back takes courage and proof, and that sometimes you have to go to war just to get justice. I've also learned that I shouldn't have ignored the signs: those late nights, her secretive behavior, the way she'd get defensive when I asked about her phone. I should have seen it coming, but I was blinded by love and hope. Now, I'm just waiting for the court to hear my case. I've got everything lined up and I'm ready to tell the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. I want everyone to know what she's done, and I want her to be held accountable. I refuse to let her walk away with my property or my reputation. I want her to pay for the lies, the forgery, and the betrayal. I don't care if she screams or cries. I know I'm in the right. And that's what keeps me going. I'll fight until the bitter end because I deserve justice and I will get it. The court hearing finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck, more so because I knew this was the moment everything would come to a head. I sat in the courtroom, staring at the legal papers I'd prepared myself for, feeling a mix of anxiety and relief. Lisa was there too, her face a mask of bitchy confidence, but I could see the flicker of worry behind her eyes. She knew she was caught, and I could tell she was trying to keep her composure, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it. When the judge called the case, I stood up and laid out everything. The forged signatures, the transfer documents, the emails, the texts. I explained how she had manipulated the situation, how she'd planned her escape for months, and how she'd lied about everything to cover her tracks. I presented the evidence calmly but firmly, knowing that the truth was on my side. I could see her trying to interrupt, trying to spin her lies, but the judge wasn't having it. My lawyer was sharp, countering her claims and exposing her for the fraud she was. It was a brutal process. Lisa tried to claim I'd threatened her, that I'd been controlling, but her lies crumbled under the weight of the evidence. The judge looked at her with a mixture of disappointment and skepticism. Finally, after hours of testimony and cross-examination, the judge made his ruling. He ordered her to return the inheritance, to pay damages for the forgery, and to cease any further attempts to claim the property. The court also granted me full control of the house and the assets, effectively stripping her of her plans to run away with everything. As the gavel came down, I felt an overwhelming wave of relief. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice. I had fought tooth and nail, and I'd won. I watched her leave the courtroom, her face twisted with anger and defeat. She tried to spin her usual lies to her friends outside, claiming she was the victim, but everyone saw through her act. I felt a strange sense of closure, knowing I'd finally taken back control of my life. In the aftermath, I started the slow process of rebuilding. I sold the house, split what I needed from the inheritance, and began to focus on myself. I didn't want to carry the weight of her betrayal anymore. I learned that trust is fragile, and sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even if it costs you everything emotionally. I also realized that I was stronger than I thought, strong enough to stand up against lies, manipulation, and betrayal. Looking back, I see how blind I was for so long. I see the signs I ignored, the red flags I missed. But more importantly, I see that even in betrayal, there's a lesson. I learned not to trust blindly, to protect what's mine, and to stand firm against those who would try to take advantage of me. I've come out of this battered but wiser, more cautious, and ready to face whatever comes next. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, trust your instincts, gather your proof, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. People can be cruel, manipulative, and downright evil when they want to get ahead. But know that justice can prevail if you're willing to stand your ground. I may have lost a lot along the way, but I gained something far more valuable: my dignity, my peace of mind, and the knowledge that I didn't let her destroy me. That's the real victory.